It is 7 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and start the City Commission meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening. I see we've picked up a few more faces since our budget meeting here at 6 o'clock. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with roll call. Al?
Brunig.
Here.
Johnson.
Present.
Maibaum.
Present.
Schramm.
Here.
Weber. Villanueva.
Present.
Mayor Mosier.
Here.
City Manager Leon.
Here.
City Attorney Denherter. Here. Thank you.
Here.
Ms. Minor, are you here?
I am here.
All right. After an attempted calling of roll call, we will move on, and I would ask for approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of July 11th, 2022.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the minutes? Anybody in the audience want to discuss the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes of July 11th, 2022, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And anybody abstaining? Minutes approved. With that, we'll move on to the city manager's report. I will turn it over to City Manager Leon.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the Commission. Our mission is to provide exemplary experiences, services, and spaces that create opportunities for everyone to learn, engage, and thrive. A couple of things for you this evening. Number one, I'm looking at our packet on my telephone tonight, so I just don't want people to think I'm engaged in a Candy Crush or Minecraft or Words with Friends, but I'm actually looking at the packet here. Also want to inform the public that they will probably see, and we received a letter from the Department of Legislative Audit that we were delinquent in completing our 2020 audit. There's no reason for alarm or anything of that nature. Our finances are in good order. However, that process was a casualty to being short-staffed and COVID. We had a lot of changes with the federal funding that we were allocated and new federal funds that we were working through, and short-staffed, and then we had an issue getting our auditors to come and audit. So that process is nearly complete. They have our audit now. When we receive it back, we have to present it to you, as we always do. We have a public process, and there's a time for public comment, of course, and then we'll be moving forward, closing that out. We don't anticipate any problems for 2021. Same schedule, that will need to be completed, I think it's June 30th of that year, so we don't anticipate problems getting that done in time. We are getting fined a penalty of I think it's $10 a day for being delinquent, but it was just one of those things that we couldn't get completed, so apologize for that, but don't want to cause any alarm if people see that in the public, that there's something wrong or missing in our finances. So if you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer those.
City Manager Malone, if I could interrupt for a second, I would just want to echo that. Appreciate the transparency you're reflecting here tonight. And to Al and his staff, all confidence on behalf of the City Commission in the job you and your staff do, so I do not want you to take that on personally, and know that you have the confidence of the Commission in the job that you do. So keep up the good work, and know that, again, as City Manager Leon said, just another product of COVID. So thank you. Go ahead and move on. Go ahead and move on with your report.
Thank you. Just one other thing. I won't see you all now until August 8th, which is our next full meeting. We're going to meet at 5:30, and I'll be presenting the budget publicly. You will receive the budget before August 1st per South Dakota codified law, so that will be dropped to you and to the public, and that presentation will go at 5:30. We'll stop in time for your regular business meeting, and then if you'd like to continue on with that, you can, or we can at that time set another special meeting for continuation of the budget presentation. Also, before I see you again, the Yankton Fire Department will be hosting Bosses Night. So this is an evening where our volunteers invite the employers who have volunteer fire personnel on their full-time staff and in their places of business to the fire station and have a really nice dinner, and well, I guess we get a hard time with, they give each other and their employers a hard time, but it's really an appreciation event to thank the employers. And so we too need to thank our employers. Many of our manufacturers in Yankton and our small business owners allow our people to go out on calls, which takes time away from their business and their bottom line. You also allow many of our people to leave at a moment's notice to go and serve on the volunteer fire department. Without that support from the volunteers, from the employers, we wouldn't have a volunteer fire department. So I just want to bring that up publicly because it really makes a big difference that we're able to run a department that way, and successfully too, I might add. So appreciate that, and appreciate all our volunteers as well. So I'm happy to stand for questions, Mayor. Otherwise, you have a manageable agenda tonight for the first time in quite a while.
Yes, we do. So with that, are there any questions for the City Manager? Seeing no microphones go on, I will move down to public appearances. Now is the time and the place for anybody in the public to appear in front of the City Commission on items not on the agenda tonight. Yes, you are appearing I can't even talk. In front of the City Commission on an agenda item not on the agenda, okay. If you could move to the podium, state your name and your address and why you are appearing in front of the City Commission.
I think I need to turn the mic on for you, sir.
Hang on.
My name is Terry Winter, and I'm possibly here for the wrong reasons. I got a phone call this morning from an individual who said that some discussion was going to take place tonight regarding the plans for West Side Park and the removal of the big tree there that we've had some discussion of, and that unless it was introduced or addressed at this point, it couldn't be brought up in the agenda. And so I'm simply here because I've been an opponent of taking that tree out and that particular plan, and I wanted to make sure that it was going to get discussed. I don't know if I'm here under the wrong intentions, because I don't know if that was on your plan, but I was told it couldn't be on the agenda unless somebody spoke to you at this juncture about that support. Am I right, or did I explain myself poorly, or what?
It is not on the agenda this evening. The commission can place it on the agenda if so directed, although I do believe, unless the commissioners direct us otherwise, that we have had that discussion and are moving forward. And the decision is that that tree will be removed, understanding that's not as you would like to see it, but my understanding is that discussion is complete.
Could I just add a comment?
Yes.
I won't be long. I'm sad to hear that, and I was hoping very much that that wouldn't be the case. I will say, in pursuing ventures like this in the future, I know that there was notice that the overall plan was going to be discussed. I don't think that was ever out to the public, that it involved the tree removal. I could be wrong, but that didn't seem to be the way it was presented. And I think when many of us who have concerns about the appearance of our community and everything receive something like that, we're thrilled that you're going to discuss park improvement. And if we see that as simply the way it is announced, you don't equate it with what I see as not a very positive beautification practice that's following. I guess in the future, if removing a landmark tree like that or something else is going to be part of the plan, maybe that should be spelled out a little bit more in the information that reaches us. Now, that I may have been derelict in my reading of what was in the paper and everything, but I don't really remember seeing much about that specific part of that park plan until I was told it was already a done deal. And I think quite a few others would have mounted some effort to ask you to reconsider. Thanks for hearing me.
Well, I appreciate your comment. I did address the commission on this last meeting, which was July 11th. And understandably, you're not alone in your perspective. It was not put out in front of the public, to help design in detail all the aspects of the West Side Park improvement. I did communicate a lot with the public about the wildlife, the ducks and geese. I thought that was going to be the thing that folks were most interested in. And I'm learning that trees also are something to be very interested. So when
I'm happy for that lesson.
When we engage in a project, a design project, it is difficult to know, what areas are going to be important to everyone and what details are going to be important to everyone. Going forward, I discussed with the commission making every best effort to try to get those details right and have them have an opportunity to discuss them, which means you as a public have an opportunity to discuss them. I won't always get that right. I do think that this may be not the most popular decision that has been made in the design of a project. However, I do believe it is the correct one, and that serves just something where you and I will disagree, I think. But I did want to offer that as an explanation, that I did address it when I became aware that it was quite a discussion amongst the public and on social media, and I think there was a letter to the editor as well.
Well, if it was a matter of the ducks, I'd have tried to speak for them too. But I do think this is a pretty significant decision that you've made, and sadly, as much as I admire any involvement in improving our parks, I do think it's the wrong one, but I guess I've had my say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Is there anybody? Mr. Hunoff. All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Coming up, if you could, for the public listening, state your name and your address.
Sure, thank you. My name is Bernie Hunoff. I live in the neighborhood of the tree at 707 West Riverside Drive. And you should take anything I say about trees with a grain of salt, because I like all trees. I grew up, like some of us in the room probably, I grew up carrying 5-gallon buckets of water to water trees long distances. So I think any tree is an important tree. But I think that maybe maybe we're giving short thrift to this particular tree. I've heard that one of the reasons is that cottonwoods are considered to be short-lived trees. I drove by that tree on the way here tonight. That tree looks pretty darn healthy to me. I think with some proper pruning and care, and I'm not an arborist, but with some proper pruning and care, that tree could probably outlive everybody in the room, honestly. I know when I was young, Dad and others would say cottonwoods were short-lived trees. And back then, that tree was there, I think, and all those beautiful old cottonwood trees down along Riverside Park were all there at the time. They don't look any different. I look different. They don't look any different. I know a guy in Pierre, Kurt Mortensen. His family dates back as old as South Dakota. And he's a lawyer and a rancher by Fort Pierre. They have a cottonwood tree on some of their land. They have a picture of that tree with a steamboat tied to it from the 1890s. And the steamboats are gone, but that tree, it looks just as good today. And it survived the 2011 flood. It was, there was about 5 or 6 feet of water up its trunk during the 2011 flood, and they thought that would kill it. It didn't. It looks just great today. If you went to DeSmet, South Dakota, there's some trees there that if you proposed to take them down, you'd be in big trouble. They were planted by Pa Ingalls in the 1880s. And they look really good. I drove by them not too long ago. They look like pretty good trees. And I don't think anybody's proposing in DeSmet that you would cut those trees down. And I think that's the point. We can't save every tree, but that is a particular community tree that is a treasure to the community. I know that hundreds, maybe thousands of kids have caught their first fish under that tree. There are lots of families that have enjoyed the shade of that tree with loved ones that are long gone. That tree is truly a community treasure. Maybe, possibly, arguably the best known and favorite tree in Yankton. So I'd be opposed to it. If it's too late, I understand that. But I think it would be a huge mistake to tear down the west side cottonwood. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernie. Is there anybody else that would like to address the commission tonight on something not on the agenda?
I'll take off my reporter hat for a moment. Since we're on the...
If I can have you state your
Yes.
name and your address, please.
Scott Borman, and I'm a foreigner. I actually live out in Mission Hill, but I work here. And this particular park is used by people a lot more than just in Yankton, okay? I am going to speak in favor of the council's decision on this tree. This is a good time to do it. It's in the middle of a construction zone, so heavy equipment could get in there. The only way you're going to do anything, including trim it, is to get lifts in there. Try to do that once it's open and kids are there, okay? They always talk about us making difficult decisions. I don't think this was a difficult decision. Painful, yes, because it will be missed. But once the park is finished, the water's in there, and kids are populating that island, how do you even trim it, much less take it down if it dies, once it dies? You know? And that island is designed for children. And it's not a difficult decision in my mind because the cottonwoods and elms are well known for shedding branches even when they're healthy. We don't need those dangers lurking over the heads of children that we've invited there. So, like I said, not difficult, but it is painful and heart-wrenching. But I think it's time.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else from the public like to address the commission tonight? What?
Can I speak? Besides myself, I suppose if there's other commissioners who have anything they want to talk about, we can add this particular item that's been discussed in public comment as part of other business.
Well, I don't want it to involve a discussion with any decision-making ability by the commission. I think the way I think it's supposed to work or designed to work is if there's something that's brought up here that you guys want to discuss, we'll add it to agenda. Future meeting.
Yes, that's what I'm asking. Is that what you were curious about, Ben?
I would be interested in adding it to a future meeting on the agenda.
Logistically, Amy just said she thinks the tree is probably coming down this week. Todd, is that right?
We were told last week that it'd be early this week, so we can certainly add it.
But
I don't think it
Timing.
changes the outcome of the decision. I'm not sure what we're adding then.
Well, I think the formality would be that this item that is potentially going to be under discussion ends up in other business first, and then if it becomes an agenda item at perhaps even a special meeting, it starts in other business, and it would then become an actual agenda item at a future meeting.
that makes me awfully uncomfortable just because it wasn't on the published agenda. In our, as long as no decisions are made, it's not technically a violation of law, but it kind of goes against our precepts of being open with the public and our representations to the media. We try very hard to make sure that we keep those discussions on published agendas. It's not technically against the law. It just makes me
We can add it to other business. I'm not opposed to that. We've had it under other business. We had it under other business 2 weeks ago. So I guess my point of clarification would be what would be the point of having it under other business again? It was under other business 2 weeks ago.
Potentially to follow up with the individuals who spoke with us here this evening, where public comment is not a place for that kind of conversation.
Okay, we will add it under other business, but I would like the public to know that there is absolutely no commission voting that will take place under other business tonight. It is not a published item. All right, anybody else under public appearance in front of the commission? I'll ask one more time. Seeing no movement, we will move on to the consent agenda. Number one is to establish August 8th, 2022 as the date for a public hearing on the new retail on-off-sale wine and cider license for January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022 from South Dakota Publishing LLC, doing business as Muddy Mo's Coffee House, Katie Hunoff owner, and that is at 233 Broadway Avenue here in Yankton. Number two is a possible quorum event, August 6, 2022, for bridge naming ceremony at Yankton High School, where no official commission action would take place. And number three is consideration of Memorandum 22-149, recommending approval of a peddler's license from Southwestern Advantage for one individual to go house to house selling educational books from July 29th, 2022 to August 29th, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Move the consent item agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Anybody in the public? All those in favor of moving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. And anybody abstaining? Consent agenda moved. Under old business, number one is consideration of Memorandum 22-142 regarding the request for a special malt beverage on-off-sale retailer's license for 2 days, September 17th and October 29th, 2022, from Backspace Brewing Company, LLC, doing business as Backspace Brewing Company, Chris Allington, partner, at Memorial Park at 200 Douglas, Yankton, South Dakota. What is your pleasure?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Al, roll call.
Schramm.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. Number 2 under old business is consideration of memorandum 22-143 regarding the request for a transfer of ownership and location of a retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine for July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2023 from Annis Properties Incorporated doing business as Patriot Express 2 at 104 East 4th Street, Suite A, Kevin Annis, President, to Finney's Casino LLC, doing business as Finney's Casino, Deb Palmer, President, 2101 Broadway, Yankton. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. Number 3 under old business is consideration of memorandum 22-144 regarding the request for a transfer of ownership and location of a retail on-sale liquor license for January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022 from YC Library LLC, Garrett Horn, President, doing business as Capitol Street Pub at 401 Capitol Street, to Shri LLC, doing business as Shri, Suite 3, Depan Patel, Manager, at 821 Broadway, Suite 3. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to new business. Number 1 is consideration of memorandum 22-145 regarding resolution 22-37, a plat of Lot 1A in Lot 1 of block plats of Lots 1 through 3 in Block 1 of Meads Addition to the City of Yankton, South Dakota. City of Yankton owner. The address is the west side of the 3100 and 3200 blocks of Broadway Avenue. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Brunig. Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. Number 2 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-147 regarding resolution 22-38, an offer to purchase 11.48 acres of city-owned land in Airport Addition to the City of Yankton. I'm going to turn, actually, before I ask for a motion or any action on this item, I'm going to ask Mr. Mingo to walk the commission through this offer. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dave.
Sure. Thanks for the time this evening to discuss what I think is one of the highlights of development potential, the highlights of the fun that I have in my job when we're working through the days and weeks in community development. We have, as you know, owned and marketed the site that we all know of as being north of Menards, north of 33rd Street. The site has we've had different thoughts of what could be there over the years, industrial or heavy commercial types of development. The site has some drainage challenges associated with it. And so earlier last year, you as a commission decided that we were going to kind of get the site ready for development, and with that consideration came the land sale for the Frito-Lay Distributing Company a year ago, and also kind of that laid the groundwork for how the property may be subdivided and the site would be graded. Well, here we are today with the preliminary engineering done as far as how the site will lay out with the grading and the detention facilities that are needed, and also with an offer on the table. And I'm excited to say that the gentleman making the offer is here in the room with us tonight, Mr. Dave Hertz, who is the new owner of Clark's Rentals. And so he is planning a substantial investment on the, I'll call it the center portion of the lot, which does not include the Broadway frontage lots. But it includes, as the mayor said, 11.48 acres of property straight north of Menards. A little over 8 of that is developable, and then the remainder of it is used for stormwater management. So the offer to purchase that property, which is known as Lot 8, is for $350,000. The purchase agreement also includes references to a right of first refusal for the frontage lots, a 1.5 acre lot, which is Lot 6 in the corner there for $115,000, and then Lot 7, which is about an acre larger than that, about 2.5 acres for $150,000. Lot 6 was 115, Lot 7 was 150. Kind of secondary to all of that, Mr. Hertz beginning construction on his property on Lot 8 next year most likely, is also asked if he can, in the short term, have the ability to use Lot 6 or 7 for a coming soon sign or a display of merchandise that he might have for sale or rent on the main part of his project. And so being adjacent to his investment that he's making on Lot 8, the proposal also includes minimal lease agreements at an incented rate for Lot 6 or 7. It isn't something that we would market or make available to anybody other than somebody who's making an acquisition that large on an adjacent lot. The rights of first refusal and the lease agreements also include the ability for the city to sell to another party if we have a bona fide offer and Mr. Hertz isn't willing to match them. The covenants are also included in the document, and they're not as specific as what we see on some of our higher end commercial occupancies, because a part of this property is adjacent to industrial land. And so industrial types of uses might be a little more prevalent on parts of it. So while we want it to be a nice looking building, and his illustrations that he's provided depict that, they're not quite as strict as we have in other locations. So there are some renderings attached also. It is a transfer of land, and anything that has a transfer of land included in a commission action requires a 2/3 majority to be approved. And all of the agreements have our standard clawback provisions. So if for some reason the project didn't come to be, the city would be able to recover the property for, in this case, a predetermined price. So with that, I'd be willing to try and answer any questions that you may have.
I don't have a question, Dave, but I just want to extend my thank you to you, because as you look at that whole area, just in the last year, it's going to undergo a huge transformation with this project, Paradigm across the street, Soccer Association building its complex. It's things that we've been waiting a decade or more to happen, and now they're all happening at once. So it's pretty incredible, and I know it's in large part due to your ability to talk with potential buyers and work with them through the process. So thank you for that.
I'd also like to add, Dave, that the retail study, in essence, helped bring Menards to Yankton, because we saw a huge loss of that type of revenue leaving Yankton. I think an expanded Clark's does something very similar, because I can imagine their machine rentals. I remodeled my basement. It was nice to have the small ones, but larger equipment, if you have to go out of Yankton to rent it, is a loss of revenue for our city, and people, I think, would take advantage of that. So it fits the area. I think it makes sense for the location. I had some thoughts on the lease when I first read through this of the Broadway lots, but I think it makes sense in this situation for the lease that the city would relinquish maintenance of those lots. I don't see it with the first right of refusal being there. It kind of all makes sense. As long as those lots are still advertised as being for sale, which they will be, I don't have a problem with the lease really part of it either.
Correct. The lease was more of a way, in working with City Attorney Denherter, that terminology seems kind of strong to me, considering it's just a neighbor using a parcel of ground that they're willing to maintain if they do in fact use it, and he might not, but it sounds like he might. But the lease is a way of making sure that we have liabilities and risks accounted for associated with any use other than the city's on the site. So that's the tool. It's, in my mind, it's not, it's called a lease, but the intent is just to determine liability and responsibility.
And I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Dave
I was just going to
Hertz.
say, I'm assuming you're Mr. Hertz, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Dave Hertz with Midwest Ready Mix and Equipment out of Vermillion. And I've ran that, I think I started that in like 2002. And I'm pretty familiar with the Yankton area. I mean, we sell a lot of these monster blocks in this area, and I've done a bunch down by the lake. And Mike Kellen actually makes them for me over here. And the Duck Pond Project, or you guys call it the West, I call it the Duck Pond Project, but they're going to use monster blocks on that project too, and they'll be buying those right here at Yankton. And I just would like to say the staff at Yankton's been excellent to work with. We can bounce ideas off of each other, try to come up with a good plan, and they help you on that end of the thing. And I'm really looking forward to it. And everybody at Clark's, I mean, Marlon's kind of been after me for a couple of years to do that project and buy that from him. But I really, his location just didn't kind of fit for what I have, because I got bigger equipment. I got dozers and excavators and a lot of big equipment. And it was too tight over there. So we worked out a deal that I could lease his building till I get this thing up and going. And, and another reason why I did want the lease on Broadway is because I have some tenants that would really like to, bite off a chunk and do their own thing, but they kind of want to get their feet wet. So that gives you the option to get them in my rental building, to get them on their feet, and then they'd have something right next door that they could expand into, and that's kind of what I did over at Vermillion. I built a new building in, I think, 2016 or 17, and then I had AMS Construction was in my building, and they now built a new facility right next door to me, and then Jaeger Diesel was in my building, and he's bought in ground. Now he bought, I think, 2 or 3 acres, and he's going to be building a building and moving out of my facility. So I was kind of trying to do that over here. And with the frontage facing Menards, I'm hoping to get, that building's big enough. It's 120 foot deep. So I was thinking you could use the front 40 foot or so could be more retail types stuff for Menards people, that are looking for floor coverings, or I really like to get a landscaper out there, because then I could have them do their landscape display for the whole place, and show off their landscape abilities. So we're working on that. So if you know anybody that would want to do that, that would be right up my alley, to get a landscaper out there. But then you'd have the back side that if a contractor, let's say a concrete contractor, really doesn't need that store frontage, but yet they'd have 80 foot of depth that they could pull their semi in or whatever, or a diesel mechanic of that kind of thing. But we're really looking forward to that. I appreciate all the work that everybody's done at the city to get this going, and I think it'll be a great project. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm right here. So.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Mingo or Mr. Hertz? If not, I would ask, what's your pleasure as far as this item on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other commission discussion? Anybody in the public want to address the commission on this? Roll call.
Mybom.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye. Mr. Hertz, welcome to Yankton. All right. Item number 3 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-148 regarding a change order for the Fox Run Golf Course irrigation pump station. This is for $44,479.06, and it's for the demolition and construction of a new pump station building. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. That does conclude items under new business. As we discussed earlier this evening, we do have one item under other business, and that is the discussion again of the tree in Westside Park. I have asked City Manager Leone to start us with a discussion of the tree in Westside Park, basically going back to and just reminding the commission as we move into this discussion with how the original decision was made.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the commission and the public. Hopefully I can shed a little more light for the folks here that are asking about the tree at Westside Park. So when we do any design project, whether that be our redesign of Walnut Street that we went through a number of years ago, or Westside Park, or any future, we kind of use 3 sort of benchmarks when we look at the features within. To consider where we go with design. So the first is safety, obviously. You know, long-term safety of the features that we're going to put in, safety of the features that are going to be taken out, damage that could be done, external or internal, et cetera. We look at the sustainability of the project. So, you know, we know that these are once-in-a-lifetime projects for us. Probably in my lifetime, we won't get the opportunity to redesign Westside Park. Probably in our lifetimes, we'll get the opportunity to redo Walnut Street. So we look at what's going to be sustainable for the long term. And, you know, the third is aesthetics. What's going to look nice? Short-term and long-term. And so those are the criteria that we use, and those are real general. And so in this case, in making the decision about the cottonwood tree, for me, that didn't tick any of those boxes, and I understand that those folks that spoke this evening disagree with that. But for me, that didn't check those boxes. I'm not an arborist myself either, so I don't have expertise in health of trees. We did ask our city arborist, and she was along with our park superintendent, and they were very frank with us that, yep, it's an old cottonwood tree. You know, so could it last a very long time? Yes. Might it not last very long at all? Yes. There are some very large branches, if you are able to look up into the tree, that are broken and not hanging on very much. Could those be maintained or trimmed off with the right equipment? Yes. So aesthetically, I don't agree that it is a beautiful tree. I think it's has some capabilities perhaps, or at one time was beautiful, but I think that when we're looking at the overall use of the island, it kind of overtakes and doesn't give as much use of the island as we might have visualized. That's an opinion only, and I realize not everybody shares the opinion. Also aesthetically overlooking the entire project, when we look at what was designed there and what we want to see happen there, you know, I think we'd like to see as much use on the island as possible. There is a tree that was planted there, it had to be 12 or 13 years ago, that was planted as the replacement of that tree that is in question. Knowing that at some point, and we didn't know about this revitalization project at that time, but knowing at some point that that tree would either be taken down or have to come down. So a replacement tree was planted. At one time, there were 2 trees there. They had that cottonwood had a partner, and that one either was taken down or blown down, I don't know, one of the 2, and that was, I would need some history on that, but that was earlier. So the plan going forward is to include trees in that park and on that island. We're not going to plant 2 of the same species because we learned with the emerald ash borer that we don't want to plant all the same species, so planting a different species there so that there's 2 different trees there on that island. When we talk about sustainability, we have a lot of investment, public dollars that are going into that, and private dollars. So we have a gift of a bridge that is going to be put in. That was an important piece of the gift that was given by Avera Sacred Heart Hospital, and certainly it is crossing my mind that I don't want to plant something or place something that was gifted or that public dollars went to that could be damaged or destroyed by that tree going down. I don't know, without boring into that tree, that we could really know, any of us could really ascertain its health. We do have a number of large, old cottonwood trees in town. They might last a long time. They may not last very much longer at all. As we do public improvement projects, we often have to make decisions about trees. And again, as I indicated earlier, we do our best to anticipate what's going to be of a lot of interest. I thought the ducks were going to be of the most interest. That still, as I understand, is an area of interest and discussion. And I think we addressed that. The tree, I didn't think it would be as big of a discussion as it's turned into be in the public because there was a replacement always planted there. So I thought it was kind of commonly understood that that would not be there forever. We've moved forward. You accepted the bid, awarded the bid. The contractor is on site. That tree is marked to be taken down, and we discussed that 2 weeks ago on July 11th. So I'm happy to answer more questions. Again, as things come up and we design projects, the more information I have from citizens and from you will help me gauge which types of topics and design elements are going to require a community conversation and which we're able to make decisions on within the design process. That would be useful to us as a staff because we certainly want to make sure that our projects are reflective of what is best for the community overall. I do think that we made the right decision in this instance, and not everyone agrees, but I'm happy to have the conversation and have the discussion.
Well, the main point for me I wasn't really looking to add this to other business, but I understood that that's technically is the correct thing to do. Because we didn't ever discuss this when we were doing the planning of the tree, or planning of Westside Park, because we never had a chance to discuss this, and we never did anything. I wanted a chance to be on public record to state that although I very much respect the reasoning behind it, that I don't agree with the reasoning behind it. I'm not looking to, I understand that there's 9 of us here, but I called everybody on this, asked them about that, and I just wanted to state that, just so that it is on public record. And moving forward, we have other large cottonwoods in the parks. We have them at Tripp Park, and we have them down at Riverside, and we have one that I rode by today that's at just past 15th on the bicycle path. And I would just like it to be known that if we are looking to take some of those are large. There's something that's unique to the area. And if there is a reason that one of them needs to come down, or something along that line that needs to come down, if we could just have a more public discussion about it, so that we're not doing the discussion after the fact. I know that we can't talk about every single tree. I understand that. I do think that this was a different tree in that you could say any tree throughout the community. You could say the maple tree at Memorial or whatever, and people wouldn't necessarily know what you're talking about. They wouldn't necessarily know what exact tree, but if you said the cottonwood at Westside Park on the island, everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. So I think there is a difference in hierarchy of those, and that some maybe are more of a landmark than others. I just wanted a place to publicly be able to say this.
Sure, thank you. That will be difficult for our staff to gauge because we take down a lot of trees throughout the course of the winter, streets and parks, and we can work through those as best as we can, if they're cottonwoods or others. I'm not sure what that will look like, but we can certainly have that discussion of what sort of format we want to use to have that discussion if that's of interest to the commission.
Sure, and I very much appreciate that. I've been asked that from people that are inside the community, and that's what we're all trying to represent folks that are in the community. And so that's something that's been asked of me, and I wanted to publicly, give that ask.
There were a handful of citizens who had sent in emails and who had also stopped into city offices just to share their thoughts. And in email here, I'd noted that one of the comments was just that Charlie Gross stopped to say that Terry Winter is correct. And so, since Mr. Winter is here, I was just wondering if he'd be interested in elaborating a little bit more. Because in my opinion, when Charlie Gross says you're correct, I'd like to make sure you get plenty of time to explain what it is that you might be correct about. Because I think you may have been, we do have a hard limit with public comment, only a couple minutes of time that you're allowed. But would you care to elaborate a little bit more on what you may have conveyed to Charlie? If you'd care to go to the podium.
I didn't talk directly to Charlie aside from the letter, which I wrote for the P&D. And I expressed my feelings there. This issue and listening to this discussion raises really quite a number of things that I think we as citizens have a right to be concerned about. With all due respect to our city manager, I have to mention that the aesthetic observation that it's not a particularly attractive tree is almost dumbfounding to me. And truly, the city did not know. I mean, the citizens of Yankton didn't really know that this was part of the plan. I find a tree of that age and glory rather more significant than ducks that live for 3 years. I'm not, by the way, out to slaughter the ducks or anything like that. I like the ducks. I'm just saying, if the ducks are significant, I think that grand landmark is more so. I simply do. We call ourselves the Tree City, and yet I've heard in this discussion, well, we can't make any plan because the city's got to be able to cut down what it has to cut down. I realize that there are reasons for it. I don't think this tree poses any more danger to anyone walking under it than any other tree we have in our community. And I don't think, especially applying that rule to the parks that we all enjoy, that it's a good process. And I don't want to be frivolous here, but I don't want the main instrument of Parks and Rec to be a chainsaw. I think there are other solutions to some of these issues. And I think it takes a lifetime. With all due respect to the tree that is almost a stick in comparison next to it. Now, it will grow, but I'll never see it. And that's selfish, I know. I just deserve to be dead in 10 years. But I think I should be able to look forward to see a glorious tree like that sitting on that wonderful park spot. And you've got a lot of citizens who have a lot of memories of that Cottonwood, of the two, one's still powerfully there, and that whole vision of a beautiful park. I have no intention or desire to diminish a plan to better utilize and to enhance that space. But talking about just the potential expense of anything, following the logic that seems to have been followed in Xing this tree for removal, anything that grows to decent size and becomes a wonderful landmark that is, suddenly involves a danger. We are known as the Tree City, or we called ourselves that, and I don't want to be known as the Stump City. And so I don't know what you can do. I know a contractor has been employed to take it out, and I guess that's where it is. But I don't think most of us knew that this was the question of how this park was going to be enhanced or addressed. And I think there's a lot of support and enthusiasm for maintaining great trees like this. And I think to cut it down would simply be a short-sighted approach. I don't know what to add beyond that. I'll hate to see it go if it has to. And I don't think that the reasons that have been mentioned so far particularly really address that much at all. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else want to address this item under other business? Yes?
Bernie Hunoff from 707 West Riverside Drive. And I'll be very short. I said what I wanted to say earlier, really, except that I do appreciate the opportunity to continue the discussion. I believe in democracy. We all do. And democracy is built around discussions like this and letting everybody have their say. I do think, and I'm sorry if I also missed some public meetings, but I do say I didn't realize we had a public discussion on this. And I would respectfully ask you to please do that, to put this on an agenda and have one good public discussion. One thing that should be discussed is safety. Maybe I'm wrong about safety, but as Mr. Winter suggested, I mean, if that tree is dangerous, sadly, there's a lot of trees up and down every avenue that probably need to go down, if that's the point. I don't believe it's dangerous. I believe with good trimming, it's a very safe tree. It just survived, one or two derechios this summer when many, many other younger trees went down in that very neighborhood. So I think it's a safe tree. I think not for the sake of the tree, but for the sake of our kids and grandkids. That's really why I'm here. For the sake of our kids and grandkids, we ought to just have a good public discussion and have it out. And if the worst thing our city arborist can say is it's an old cottonwood tree, that's a pretty nice thing to say about a tree, really. So if that's the worst thing she said about it, then I think we should at least have a public discussion before we cut that tree down. Thank you.
Amy, was it the contractor who first brought the safety of the tree to the city's attention? Essentially stating that they felt it was important for the tree to come down as part of their work for the city?
No, I didn't have that discussion with the contractor. The contractor may have had that discussion with another city employee or perhaps our engineer. Those are observations made just by looking up into the tree and seeing, large branches which are damaged or broken. So those are just observations. So I would say the contractor has not said that to me, but I think has said that to, I would have to confirm that, has talked with other staff or maybe our engineer on that. But my information comes from standing under it and looking up at it and seeing those large branches that are either twisted and broken or snapped. And I don't know the health of the tree internally, so I can't speak to that.
And the plan is for the tree to come down this week?
Correct. So we were under the understanding that may come down late last week or today. I had driven by today, this afternoon, it was not down. Part of it depends upon the timing of the contract. So they're still in the process of digging down the pond depth. So I suppose they're waiting for perhaps a subcontractor to do that and need to do some staging. So I don't know the exact day that it's scheduled, but we're understanding, weather permitting, that it's going to be this week.
I had to pull up our Arbor Day proclamation that we did back in April. I think it's, it's okay for us to, in the years ahead, to still proclaim ourselves and proclaim Yankton an Arbor Day city. I think we can all agree this is a little bit of a red eye, I suppose, as to how the optics of this has played out. I want to give Mike an opportunity to speak too. I know he had sent an email to the city staff, but I will just offer up this one more time, and that is the fact that this whole project, as it turns out, has created a very premature life for this tree because it has been accelerated to the point that we're trying to do so much of this project all at once, when if this project had played out over the course of 5-10 years, as was originally talked about, this tree may have naturally had its life ended just through an act of God, for instance. But because this project has played out so quickly, the way that it has, that it's going to be nearly completely done here in this year, 2022, we're going to be ending the life of this tree quite a few years earlier than it could have most likely seen, which might be 20 years. I've heard 20 years, I've heard 30 years. It wasn't until a family member brought it up to me, but we've got cottonwood trees on our family farm in Crofton, Nebraska that are over 100 years old, and I didn't even realize it. They were just, I knew they were there in the 80s when I was a kid, but that's a cottonwood for you. I guess they're the Midwest version of a redwood, I guess. But that's all I had to offer up. Eager to hear what Mike has to say.
If you can, state your name and your address, please, Mike.
Okay, thanks. Mike Haley, 1811 Cedar. I thank you for receiving the letter, Amy, and for sharing it with the commission so you know where I stand in this, or at least my opinions. I think one of the things that I'm observing is really the process that, whether it's for this tree or for any others, of how the public can be involved. And I give an example that turned out to be very successful, and that was the Aquatic Center. There was a lot of public input over a period of time, 2 or 3 years, and I think we had a result that was just outstanding, and we're experiencing the positiveness of that at this particular time. I think what has raised the question here, just again my observation, is that 2 weeks ago, I was not here at the meeting, but I understand the gentleman was and expressed some comments about the tree early on in the meeting. And then it was referred to later in the meeting to be discussed by the commission, which I understand was. And so as I'm perceiving this, as I'm hearing, and maybe I'm incorrect on that, is that was really the public discussion then about the tree by the commission. And so the question comes up then, if that night that was determined that was going to be a discussion point, where does the public get involved in being able to make comments or have a discussion on that point? And I was not here, but I'm perceiving this as part of that discussion. And apparently it was, but yet, and again, I'm just here to raise the question on the process in general. So thank you for those comments. And I, again, appreciate being here, which is more than I've had in the past. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'm going to ask Ross to answer that question.
Okay, so a little bit of background here. This project, there were a number of bullet points about this project as a whole that the commission had discussed that were subject to public input. As City Manager Leon pointed out, there was a failing on the part of staff in terms of bullet pointing this tree as a matter of discussion. And as a result, this particular tree was not part of the public discussion overall. The discussion focused on a number of things like, the pond restructure and the ducks. And, we had discussions about the sundial and, kind of the bigger items that were associated with the project. But it was a failing on the part of staff to nail down this particular tree as being worthy of discussion. From a staff standpoint, my understanding is there's always trees that get removed whenever there's large projects. It's unavoidable. There were a whole number of trees that were removed when the Youth Aquatic Center was built, for instance. And just by way of background for the staff, they created a policy for determining when to remove trees. City Manager Leon pointed that out a little while ago. And under that policy, it was determined that this tree didn't make sense, to Mr. Winter's point, which was well made, that this tree is emotional to a lot of people. There is sentimental attachment to that tree, and I can't minimize that. The city can't minimize that from a staff standpoint. But when we do, as City Manager Leon pointed out, lifetime projects, I don't mean to be rude when I say this, but I think it's short-sighted to think that this tree staying there, that's the short-sighted decision, because a typical average age for a cottonwood tree, according to Google, is 70 years. It's estimated by the arborist that this tree is over 60, potentially 65. So with that in mind, when you're looking at the average lifespan, this tree is done. So I know it could last another 70 years because it's the average. We have lots of examples of trees that have lived longer, but it is cheapest to remove it now when the pond is drained. It's going to be dredged 15 feet all the way around. So under those circumstances, it's going to be much more expensive. So based on this explanation, my paraphrasing of staff decision is it was best for that tree to come down, and from a liability standpoint, which is the language I speak, I'm worried about that tree dropping branches. So all of those decisions played into staff's conclusion that trees got to go. We regret that was not brought forward when the matter was let for bids. So the ship has sailed from a certain practical standpoint. The bid has been let. We can stop it, but it would take a board decision, probably in a special meeting this week, and it would require the project to halt, discussion with the engineer, the contractor, change order, because if that tree stays, it changes the nature of that project. This project has a timeline that the Youth Aquatic Center did not have. So my understanding is there's deadlines for this project to be completed that are on a timeline consistent with the donors. So the commission can hit the brakes, but it could come at a consequence. There could be donors who decide they don't want to donate. If timelines aren't met, these are unknowns or speculations that I can't tell you how they will play out, but the project as bid was the project that the donors donated money based upon. So it is unfortunate, but I want the public and I want the commission to understand the backdrop that the decision was made here, and understand that it was not this underhanded effort to try to get one past the commission or get one past the public. It was just an error by staff not to bring this forward when the entire project was discussed. So I hope that gives some clarification to the public, to this commission as a whole, and it also helps the public understand why at this point, it's practically probably too late to do anything about it. But having said that, this is your meeting. The staff drives, or staff sails the boat in the direction you point it. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, Ross and the contractor, they're following through based on the engineering specs that we've paid for, $200,000 worth of engineering work from Stockwell's. And in those engineering specs, it specifically is spelled out that this tree has to be removed in order for the project to be completed. Is that right?
That is part of the project is spec'd out and bid upon. That's my understanding, correct?
Just to make sure, so we're on the same page. So as part of this oversight that you mentioned, I mean, like in the pejorative, the oversight is that it was in the engineering specs, it was an oversight, that this tree was going to come down, wasn't necessarily brought to everybody's attention as soon as it could have been.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it. It was not part of the design specs, but it was part of the package as bid.
So it was bid in the project and was available to the public. I want to make that clear. I mean, in the bid package, if you went to the city website and looked at the bid, it was in the bid packet that the tree would come down.
Yeah, the average person would not have known to look for that.
No, but I'm just saying it is in the bid package.
Yeah.
The average commissioner didn't know to look at that either.
I understand that, and I know the average public didn't either. But I just, to answer Commissioner Mybaum's package, that was a contractor who would have went and looked at the bid package would have saw that the tree came down, or that the tree was bid in that contracting package. And to your question, Mike, a lot of what Ross said, and you wouldn't know, but I guess public discussion for West Side Park, the night that would have been on the agenda, technically would have been the night that we would have discussed the bid for West Side Park. And that night we had the artist rendering, and would have been the night we would have talked about, or if the public had questions about all the types of projects going on at West Side Park and what would have been in that package and all the types of activities going on at the park, would have been the night for the public to be able to come and address the commission and ask questions. I'm not putting it on the public by any means. Please don't take it that way. I'm just saying when we went to talk about and bid out that project and then accept the bid for that project, we could have talked about it that night as well. That was when it was open to the public, is when we put the bid out for award and then accepted the bid. Would have been an opportunity to address that night as well. So there was a couple of times we talked about West Side Park. Same for us, too. I mean, that could have been questions we asked as well. I put it on us as well, and myself.
I just want to say, too, but that's why I'm glad we're having this discussion, because discussion from the public is so important. Being involved in your local government is so important, and that's why thank you, Mr. Winter, Mr. Hanoff, and Mike Healy for coming and speaking to us. I also have to put the faith in our staff. If an arborist tells me that a tree needs to come down, then I'm going to have to believe the arborist, because I am not an arborist. But with that being said, yes, we also don't know what we don't know. We didn't know that at that time, or at least I didn't, that tree was coming out. So we need to make sure that we're being upfront. This discussion should have happened a long time ago, before now. And we know that. We're taking onus on that. There was a mistake made. We'll do better, and we're going to move forward. So, again, thanks for your input.
Any other discussion? And I know, Mr. Winter, and I appreciate your thoughts, and Mr. Hoff and Mr. Healy for coming in tonight. And I know there was a project done in front of your house, and you came in and gave us the history of a tree in front of your house. And working and going back with a pencil and going back to the drawing board, we were able to work to save that tree, and I was excited to see that and drove by. As you know, we used to live down the street from you, and so excited to see. So when the opportunity did work to do that, I know that that was a project we were able to work with you on. So, when those opportunities do come up, and it works to do that. I know we've tried to work with people on that. So unfortunately, in this case, that wasn't the opportunity, but I do appreciate you coming here tonight again and speaking to the commission. Other thoughts? All right. Anything else from the commission again, under other business? All right, with no other business in front of the city commission, then I would ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting of July 25th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And anybody abstaining? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you and have a good evening.